When the massive silhouette of the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt first appeared over Europe, many German pilots scoffed. Compared to the sleek lines of the Messerschmitt Bf 109 and the agile Focke-Wulf Fw 190, the American fighter looked oversized and clumsy. Nicknamed the Jug by its own pilots because of its barrel-shaped fuselage, it hardly resembled a graceful dogfighter. Luftwaffe veterans believed speed, climb rate, and tight turning ability determined aerial dominance. On paper, the P-47 seemed to lack the finesse required for the swirling dogfights over occupied Europe. Yet what German pilots saw as weakness hid a different philosophy of air combat, one built around power, durability, and altitude performance. The Thunderbolt was never designed to win slow-turning duels. It was built to dive like a meteor, strike with overwhelming firepower, and climb back to safety. Early encounters led to misjudgments, and overconfidence crept into German tactics. But within weeks, combat reports began telling a different story. The so-called useless American fighter was not only surviving, it was dominating in ways few had predicted. The P-47's development reflected America's industrial mindset during World War II. Designed by Republic Aviation, it was powered by the massive Pratt & Whitney R-2800 double wasp engine, producing more than 2,000 horsepower. This radial engine gave the aircraft exceptional durability. Unlike liquid-cooled engines used by many German fighters, the air-cooled radial could absorb significant damage and keep running. German pilots, accustomed to seeing enemy aircraft burst into flames after a few hits, were stunned when Thunderbolts returned home riddled with bullet holes. The aircraft's turbo supercharger allowed it to perform superbly at high altitude, where bomber escort missions demanded endurance and power. Though heavy, that weight contributed to its diving speed. Once the P-47 pointed its nose downward, few German fighters could catch it. The Thunderbolt was not elegant, but it was brutally effective in the right hands. Firepower was where the P-47 truly shocked its critics. Equipped with 8.50 caliber M2 Browning machine guns, it could unleash a devastating stream of bullets. In a single pass, the Thunderbolt delivered more firepower than many opponents combined. German aircraft, especially when caught in a dive, found themselves ripped apart in seconds. The weight of the guns and ammunition added to the plane's bulk, but it also meant sustained firing capability. Pilots could afford longer bursts, increasing hit probability. Luftwaffe pilots who initially tried to outturn the Jug soon realized that staying in front of its guns was suicidal. The Thunderbolt excelled at boom and zoom tactics, diving from altitude, firing with overwhelming force, then climbing away before the enemy could react. The turning point came during intensive air battles in 1943 and 1944, as American bomber formations pushed deeper into German territory. Escort missions were brutal. The P-47's job was to protect vulnerable bombers from interception. At first, losses were heavy on both sides. But as American pilots adapted their tactics, they began exploiting the Thunderbolt's strengths. Instead of turning with the enemy, they used altitude as a weapon. Diving attacks shattered German formations. In one extraordinary month, a single group of P-47 pilots claimed 39 German fighters destroyed, an astonishing tally that stunned Luftwaffe intelligence officers. German confidence eroded quickly. Pilots reported that the Thunderbolt could outdive anything in their arsenal. Attempts to follow often resulted in structural failure or loss of control at high speed. The P-47's rugged airframe absorbed the stress, allowing American pilots to push limits others could not. The myth of its uselessness began collapsing under hard evidence. What had once looked like a lumbering target became a high-altitude predator. Survivability played a crucial role in its success. The P-47 featured armor plating around the cockpit and self-sealing fuel tanks. Pilots frequently returned with severe battle damage. Stories circulated of Thunderbolts landing safely despite missing chunks of wing or fuselage. This resilience boosted pilot morale. Confidence translates into aggression in air combat, and Thunderbolt pilots increasingly took the fight to the enemy. As the air war intensified, the P-47 expanded beyond escort duty. It evolved into one of the most effective fighter bombers of the war. Carrying bombs and rockets, it devastated rail yards, convoys, and airfields. German ground forces soon feared the distinct roar of its engine. The aircraft's ability to absorb ground fire made it ideal for low-level attacks. The Luftwaffe faced mounting shortages, fuel-trained pilots, and replacement aircraft dwindled. Against this backdrop, the Thunderbolt's reliability and sheer numbers overwhelmed defenses. American industry produced thousands, ensuring constant pressure. The month in which 39 German fighters fell symbolized more than tactical success. It reflected industrial superiority. Pilot training also made a difference. American aviators were taught energy tactics, emphasizing speed and altitude rather than tight maneuvering. The P-47 fit this doctrine perfectly. German pilots who underestimated it paid dearly. Combat reports increasingly warned against engaging Thunderbolts in vertical maneuvers. Weather and terrain further amplified its strengths. High-altitude performance meant the P-47 thrived above cloud layers where bombers cruised. Its turbo-supercharger maintained power where others struggled. German fighters attempting interceptions often found themselves at a disadvantage before combat even began. The psychological shift was profound. What began as mockery turned into caution. Radio chatter from German formations changed tone when Thunderbolts appeared. The aircraft's size, once a joke, now symbolized danger. Technological refinement improved later variants, enhanced propellers, better canopy visibility, and increased fuel capacity, extended range and lethality. Each upgrade reinforced its dominance. By late war, the Thunderbolt had carved out a reputation as both escort guardian and ground attack terror. The Luftwaffe's shrinking strength meant fewer chances to challenge it effectively. The destruction of 39 fighters in a single month became emblematic of the aircraft's potential when properly deployed. It proved that design philosophy matters as much as agility. In the end, the useless P-47 was anything but. It embodied American power, massive, resilient, relentless. German pilots learned too late that underestimating an opponent can be fatal. The Thunderbolt did not need elegance. It needed altitude, speed, and 8 roaring guns. And in the skies over Europe, that was more than enough.